current situation with the Icelandic government is such that they want to resume whaling as soon as possible.
The whales are migratory species. They do not solely belong to one country.
It's the mystery. It's the whole mystery of the whale. It's the gracefulness.
私が終始この16年間奉仕をしてた間に取ったクジラが3970頭ぐらいあるのかな。
What to do about whales provokes international debate that is not matched by any other living thing. Across the four corners of the globe, in New Zealand, Iceland, Japan and the USA, we will see how these countries are deciding how best to utilize whales to suit their own needs. As scientists battle over how many whales are left, countries are making choices whether whales are worth more dead or alive. The consumption of whale meat continues to be promoted, while people spend millions of dollars each year going whale watching to see whales alive.
3 tails, 4 or 5 tails. Wow. Oh, man.
Throughout history, man has hunted whales. The oil from whales lit the lamps of the Western world. As technology improved, whales were taken from every ocean until so few were left that the industry all but dwindled away. In 1982, this crisis inspired an international moratorium to stop killing whales. Through a loophole in this agreement, Japan and Norway are still killing whales. The pressure intensifies for other countries to join them and re-establish full-scale commercial whaling. In the far North Atlantic Ocean, Iceland lies roughly midway between North America and Europe. Iceland is heavily dependent on fishing and the use of marine resources. Pressure is mounting on government as cod, their #1 export, is in decline through over-exploitation, and fishing quotas are down. There is urgency from fishermen that Parliament take immediate action to resume whaling.
12:30? Yeah, 2 of them at least over there. 200 meters, 200-300 meters away. Yeah. Minke whale is the primary target for the whalers. They are claiming that the stock around Iceland can be up to 50,000-60,000 individuals, and it can sustain some whaling. But for us, the whale watching business, the minke whale is our local hero, and we just will not accept whaling taking part anywhere in these waters.
Well, Iceland is entirely dependent on marine resources and the harvest of marine resources. Whales are, in our opinion, a resource that should be exploited.
On the other side of the world, 2,500 miles north of the Antarctic, New Zealand, another small island nation, utilises the whales in a different way.
We nearly destroyed the whaling ecosystem in the Southern Oceans, down to less than 10% of the biomass of 100 years ago. The ban on commercial whaling, the establishment of the Southern Ocean Sanctuary, and the establishment of a viable economic industry like whale watching, which is benign, have all helped to recover the whale stocks somewhat. But the community's also been given a second chance.
New Zealand's indigenous Maori Ngāi Tahu tribe created the very successful business Whale Watch Kaikoura. Whaling is not part of the indigenous Maori tradition. Rather, they held the whale up as a great symbol of abundance. Morris Manawatu is the senior captain for their fleet of whale watch boats.
The Māori people from here, we have different stories. We see ourselves as the kaitiaki or the guardians. It's our job today to look after the whales, whereas in the past they actually looked after us.
The first Māoris came here on the back of the whale, and the first Europeans came here hunting whales. And as we go into the new millennium, whales are protected in New Zealand, and we now have a thriving industry based on showing people whales in their natural environment.
Although there is a long history of small-type whaling around their coast, it wasn't until 1935 that Japan started large-scale commercial whaling in international waters.
This is 大砲、捕鯨砲がもう寒さで氷でベロベロ、全然使えないなくなってる。これでも氷落としする。カンカンカンカンカン。これ後でポンと打ったら、どうしてもロープとかいろんなものに残ってる氷が散ってきて、顔いっぱいガラスの粉が刺さったみたいで血がいっぱいにじんできますよ。こうなってきたらもう南極はもう終わりですね。
Japan is a country that relies on the resources from the sea to feed the people, with individuals consuming 7 times more seafood than the global average intake.
As usual, Japan's position is to utilize any natural resources, including wildlife, on a sustainable basis. So we don't consider whale is any exception.
Today, Japan is hunting whales using a scientific loophole in the international agreement. This whale meat is openly sold in the Tokyo fish markets.
So Japan is dedicated for harvesting whale. As far as such harvesting activity would produce good provision of protein to the dietary life of Japan.
Yankee whalers in the 1800s set the stage for whale killing around the world. Now, 150 years later, America's fascination for whales has helped create a commercial whale watch industry worth over $500 million per year.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome aboard the Dolphin 8. I am Dr. Carol Carlson. I represent the International Fund for Animal Welfare. I'll be your field guide for this trip. Ever since the Dolphin fleet started whale watching on this coast, members of our team at the center have been on board. We've been collecting information and learning about whales.
Marine biologist Dr. Carol Carlson has spent the last 20 years researching humpback whales in Provincetown off the back of a whale watch boat. Carol has been inspired to devote her life to the study of whales.
I saw it!
whales are amazing. They're so large, and yet they seem to be so cognate, so aware of their environment, so aware of us. Perhaps it was their size, or perhaps it was the fact that they actually came over to the boat. Maybe it was the fact that when they rolled over, I could see their eye, and I was looking at this large whale's eye. And later, it was certainly the fact that we know so little about them, that there were so many mysteries about their lives. And I think that's what really hooked me.
Tomohisa Nagaoka is well respected as one of Japan's most renowned whalers. As a young man, he left home and spent the next 16 years on the high seas, working aboard Japanese factory whaling ships. As he was strong and fit, he was trained as a harpoonist. Standing on the bow of the boat, Nagaoka's eyes were quick to spot the whales, and often in treacherous conditions, he became a skilled hunter.
Well, その時にはやっぱりどうしてもね、こいつはもう仕留めて取らなきゃなっていうなんていうか使命感っていうのがね、より強いんですね。だからもうものすごく緊張するんですよね。だからタバコをもう火つけてプッと吸ってはもう次のやつまたプッとツッとつけて吸うっていうようなそのような緊張感を非常になんていうのか覚えたことあるんですけどね。だからあとバーンともう一発当たらんままベットして離してしまえばその気持ちは一旦収まりますね。だからもう私も16年間奉仕したんですけど、やっぱりそういうあれはどーっと最初の一発はものすごく緊張しましたですね。
After retiring, Nagaoka felt a great longing to be with the whales once more, and this time he decided the relationship would be different.
クジラも見やすいと思いますからね。だからよく気をつけて見とってください。私たちよりお客さんの方が目が見えるはずですから。
ホエールウォッチングを始めてもクジラの種類とかこのクジラはこういう性質だなっていうことなんかがよく分かるんですね。だからいまだにもお客さんなんかにもそういうことが説明できるっていうのが私の強みじゃないかなと思うんですね。
これがやれてるってことは非常に幸せなことですね。おじさんとしては取れないんだけどクジラにいつもクジラを見るとかクジラの近くに入れるってことが非常に嬉しく思っています。
右入る。そこ出る。あと入れるよ。そっちかな。あそこも。
Here in the remote Icelandic village of Húsavík, on the edge of the Arctic Circle, Appi Björgensson fights for the whale's cause.
Well, after my first whale watching trip in 1993 from Iceland, I've been a changed man. I got hooked on whales. I was becoming 40 years of age, and I thought if I don't do something I would really love to do now, I'll probably never do it and would always regret it. So I made a decision with my family to move from Hafnarfjörður up to Húsavík, from the city community to the little village out in the country, and this has been a wise decision.
From Húsavík, Appi shows Icelanders the potential of whale watching in a country where 75% of the people are keen to resume whaling. Nowhere else is the whale debate more divided now than in Iceland.
I'm quite confident that whaling will start here again. There is no question about that. You cannot live here in Iceland without utilizing the whole ocean around the coast.
To sway public opinion, Appy set up a whale centre, linking the history of whaling to the new era of whale watching.
This room used to be the old freezer, and we decided to have it differently looking than the other parts of the museum.
The Whale Centre is set up both as a tourist attraction, but also and mostly it's set up to promote the conservation of whales and to promote knowledge about whales and whaling, and to promote a positive coexistence of man and nature.
They just grab the food with the teeth and they swallow it whole. Yeah.
This is the first whale museum you see in Iceland. And he's trying to let people, Icelandic people, think like whales are not just for eating, also for looking at, and they're animals like we, and there's something exciting or something that we have to try to know and not just try to eat. His eye?
And the mouth and the eye is here. But this specimen was found in a whale that was killed in 1909. Oh, wow. So it's 90 years old.
Whales have been harvested in Iceland since the early years of settlement. From 1949, Icelandic whalers brought hundreds of whales to this whaling station to provide meat for export to Japan.
The whaling stopped in Iceland in 1989, and that's when the last whale was towed up this area here. And it's just so strange to walk this path up to the flanging ground where a blue whale was hauled up about 40 years ago.
Appy's vision for the whales isolates him from the majority of his countrymen.
Things you can do around the harbor. I've been called names and I've been shouted at in Reykjavik when attending meetings, called a whale lobbyist terrorist or something like a conservation terrorist. That really describes these persons more than myself. When you're studying throwing dirt, you lost a case. So being calm and reasonable and always ready to argue and talk gives you credibility, it builds up your image. And you have to be very, very careful in Iceland about what you say. And as soon as you're into feelings and showing that you are in this just because you feel so much for the whales, I think you are dead.
Here in Japan, minke and Brouder's whales are killed as part of a scientific research program. The Brouder's whale is also the most popular to watch. Whale watching first started in Japan in 1988 and spread quickly to 10 locations across the country. Ports like Moroto in southern Japan became popular destinations for this new wave of tourism.
この地におきましては、多くのクジラが訪れ、ここで捕鯨を行いまして、古くから捕鯨漁業を行ってきたところでございます。今でも室戸岬を中心にいたしまして、沖合にはクジラが訪れておるところでございます。またこのクジラにつきましては、ホエールウォッチングが盛んになりまして、何隻かの船がホエールウォッチングで多くの観光客または取材に訪れておるところでございます。
そして一般のたくさんの人々がそこへ参加していくことによって日本の一般の風向きも変わり始めていたんですね。ところが政府はそれを上回る宣伝として捕鯨を続けなくてはいけない。それは文化伝統の維持であるということを盛んに言って宣伝を繰り返したわけです。
fishery agency successfully made it into such a very emotional and nationalistic issue, because they can use such terms as Japan's tradition, culture, heritage, and also you can easily put this in the context of Japan versus the West.
While the young people of Japan emulate their Western counterparts with a desire for fast food, the Japanese government continue to promote eating whale meat.
It's still popular, even for the younger generation. They would like to very much appreciate it, but particular since the older generation who enjoyed in the past when we had provision of the whale meat from commercial whaling activity before moratorium.
しかし一般の人たちはもうクジラの肉は食べなくてもいいという考えになっている人が多いもんですから、一般の人にもできるだけ広くクジラの肉を食べさせようということで、無料で配ってみたり、学校給食で食べさせてみたり、それからレストランを援助して、食べさせてみたり。
Yeah, it is very obvious, I believe, that the Japanese people do not need any whale meat for, say, survival and identity or cultural matters or anything really.
As the debate continues in Japan, the whales in New Zealand are a significant resource in the growth of coastal communities.
The whales have had a dramatic impact on this town. You're talking about a population of 3,500 and a town that was basically dying out. Today, it's dynamic, it's innovative, people have confidence, and they have a pretty sound economic base.
Yeah, another whale up, Lester, on the inside. Yeah, another whale on the inside, back where we were.
I guess with whale watching, it's sort of, created employment for the whānau, and as time's gone on, I think today we're the biggest employer in the town.
Yeah, Dean, we've got a whale up. We're sort of out where we were.
Given us, probably Māori, a whole lot of mana, a whole lot of mana where, we can lift our heads up high when we walk downtown.
Whale watching has empowered this Maori tribe. Once on the fringe of their community, they have, through the whales, become central to the town's survival.
Before the company started, I was working here and there, but my world was, going back there, was a world of a lot of drugs and a lot of alcohol and, violence and everything that goes with it. When I started working for Whale Watch, I put all that aside and it was a whole change of life for me.
Kaikoura is one of those sites in New Zealand that we're really proud of. It's one of the special places that you can visit in our country. There, the local indigenous people, the Māori people who live there, the tribe of Ngāi Tahu, have developed this whale watch opportunity which has become incredibly successful. It was a place where the last whales in New Zealand were killed. Now it's a place where we celebrate live whales. This has been a win for everyone.
Whales used to be valued more dead than alive, but through whale watching, they are more valuable alive, and whales alive is the way the whole future can have a second chance of providing the optimum utilization of these resources in a way that is a benefit to humans as well as to whales.
Provincetown and the ports on this part of America's east coast were once the whaling metropolis of the world.
Now the wharf went out probably another 200 feet, and they would receive sailing vessels and steamers or any sort of vessel that had a whale in tow.
Yankee whalers cruised the world, slaughtering every whale they could find.
It was a very smelly operation. It was not the type of thing you'd want to do next to a dry goods store, for example. There is a notice in the Advocate referring to a whale that had been rendered to produce 50 barrels of oil and 1,000 barrels of smell.
With no whaling and the collapse of the fishing industry, Provincetown needed to find a new way to survive.
It all started because we weren't making enough money. We were trying to figure out how to support 2 families doing this in 10 weeks out of the year because there was nothing here at all in the off-season. So we came up with a couple of ideas. One was taking senior citizens flounder fishing in the spring and fall, and the other one was taking school groups out whale watching because we had heard that it was being done in the West Coast. So we tried both of them. We sent letters out to schools and we sent letters out to senior citizen groups. We made one flounder fishing trip, first and last we ever did.
Each year, from June to September, 400,000 people travel to Provincetown to see the breathtaking acrobatics of the North Atlantic humpback.
A lot of people laughed down the pier, but it was a new thing and nobody was doing it on the East Coast. Nobody had ever heard of it. They couldn't believe that somebody, when you tell somebody you're going whale watching, they'd say, whale watching? They couldn't believe it. It was like going out in space or something.
Provincetown totally relies on tourism for its economy. We used to have the fishing industry to help us along with that, but now that that's almost completely gone, it's 100% tourism.
It's a tremendous impact economically on this community. Bigger, I believe, than anyone could ever imagine, and I think a lot of people imagine it's big. Huge numbers of people coming to town to do that and then discovering the place. I think it's probably changed the fabric of this community in ways that we will never, ever credit it with.
How busy it gets. It gets so busy that sometimes we forget to eat lunch until about 3 in the afternoon.
When a resource is so much more valuable left alive, it seems to me that whaling has little place in our culture now, or in our society. But I understand that may not be the case other places in the world.
To resume whaling in Iceland, studies have been carried out to calculate whether it is a viable industry. The data collected and its meanings remain very contentious both here in Iceland and around the world.
The key factors is the need for research. We are running an ecosystem approach here in Iceland, and the basis for that is a good knowledge of the environment and the interactions between the different species of animals in the oceans.
A lot of work has been done to assess the size of the whale stocks. If you want to have a very good picture and accurate knowledge of the state of the stocks, I think you will have to conduct some whaling. I mean, it's very difficult to do any scientific work on the whale stocks if you don't do any whaling.
Well, when you live in a maritime nation like Iceland, where you depend on the resources of the ocean, you have to harvest the whole thing in a balance, and you cannot leave the whales untouched. That's impossible.
We know for certain that the whale stocks around Iceland, at least most of them, they are sustainable. I mean, they are in a very good shape. The scientific advice tells us that they could be harvested without any danger of depletion.
When you look at the methods of the scientific modeling, you just can't help to say something. It's so flawed and spurious. Most of the biologists, they are highly skeptical. But this is a small country, and being up against the pro-whaling machine is very difficult. I mean, the nation as a whole regards whaling as our rights, link it to our self-dependence and so on. So it can be pretty tough to say something against the mainstream. So they don't speak out loud at the university.
Appy has heard that the whaling issue is being discussed once again in Parliament. and immediately flies to the capital, Reykjavik, to add his opinion to the heated debate.
We're lobbying in Parliament and within the government to try to get them to see that whale watching is a very positive way of utilizing the whale stocks around Iceland.
I feel if Icelanders were actually asked whether we could jeopardize the image of Iceland, our fish markets, the tourism sector, which is now the second largest in Iceland in revenues, if we can jeopardize that for a few whales each year, the answers would be quite different. You would have the majority of the nation saying, no, we are not going to jeopardize that.
Unfortunately, the public opinion in many countries of the world, and that includes our most important markets for fishery products, is very much against whaling. We have been under pressure from authorities in this country.
We have protested against any rash or quick resumption of whaling or any decision in this regard, because we think it would have a very negative effect on tourism and on Iceland's image in general. Whether it is justified, or not, whether the real arguments are there or whether it's just the perceptions and the feelings associated with whales by the populations of the Western world, that's another matter. But we have warned very strongly against it because we are very afraid that it would negatively hurt our image and our tourism.
There's no prospect of making money out of whaling. The economics are clearly there for virtually everyone to see that there's far more money in tourism going out and watching them rather than killing them.
The commercial industry of whale watching in New Zealand is probably worth more today than what the hunting of the whales was worth to the country back in the 18th century.
As more people move to the cities, nature tourism becomes one of the fastest growing industries worldwide. And the New Zealanders believe this makes the untouched wilderness a very valuable commodity.
It's got a range of probably about 4 miles. So if we hear a whale, if there's a whale within 4 miles echolocating, we should hear it.
The sperm whale's brain is the largest of any creature to have lived on Earth. All whales are air-breathing, so it is incredible that this whale dives to depths of up to 3,000 meters, lasting up to 2 hours before their next breath. Giant squid of up to 5 meters in length have been found in their stomach.
I've grown up here and, by the sea and sort of feel myself as being part of the sea to a point. So, and all my family going back hundreds and hundreds of years, have all had a relationship with the sea, and I feel sort of privileged that I'm lucky enough to be able to carry that on. How's it going?
I think the whales bring about a connection with his tupuna or ancestors, because he knows that they had a relationship for years along this coastline.
This is a whale. I'm seeing him. Oh, he's going down. He's about to go. Woohoo! Good whale. That's a whale we named probably about 3 days ago, 4 days ago. He's been hanging with knuckles. They sort of seem to be working together or feeding together. And we've named him Iahaha.
And these waters around here, there's still whales here, but they're certainly not in high numbers. And if whaling ever started, the whole industry would be over within a few months, because the whales would be so readily accessible, and that would be it. Back to hard times again.
In Provincetown, the whales have provided not only new social and financial benefits, but also a platform for Carol and a team of scientists to study whales. Their data is used by the American government to create marine protection legislation.
On this chart are individual humpback whales. We can tell them apart by the shape of the fin on their back or by the pattern on the underside of their tail. This pattern is as stable as each one of your thumbprints, but it's the size of a small billboard on the side of a highway. No two whales have the same tail pattern, and by looking at these tail patterns, we have been able to answer some very basic questions about whales. Perfect. Now this photograph, when it's developed, will be looked at by one of our researchers. We started the catalog in 1979. Before that, we literally had a small box of photographs. Now we have very extensive files, perhaps the largest single database in the world on humpback whales.
There are no walls and channels in the ocean. They can travel any direction they want. And that they should return to this rather tiny area and use it as they've used it all along. That says something basic about the way these animals organize themselves. It's neat stuff.
There was a whale just ahead that's been very active, and now it has a flipper in the air. See that long arm of the humpback. No whale has flippers as long as a humpback whale, and in fact their scientific name, Megaphora novanglii, very loosely translates to large winged New Englander. So the flippers of the humpback whale are literally wings in the water.
These large whales provided a much-needed source of protein for the Japanese people after World War II. Nagaoka's skills as a harpoonist were relied upon to feed the nation.
私のうちが今ここにこうして現存しているのはクジラのおかげだと私は思うんですよね。クジラのおかげで大きくなって2人の子供を大きくしてでこうして家も建てて生活できているのはクジラのおかげだと思うんですけど、それをつけるようになると大したもんなんですよ。楽しいだっていうことは全然感じないってね。もう連続ですよね。だいたい100日操業って100日間操業するんですよね。だから約3ヶ月その間だからもう漁期が終わった時にはもうやれやれっていうような感じだからなんとかその懐かしとかあれとかそういう一つもそういう感情が湧いてこない。
To commemorate their whaling fleet days, Nagaoka and the other ex-whalers get together to honor the bounty of the ocean and their part in Japan's history by celebrating Marine Day. At the end of the day, it is the old whalers that win the race, and they sit down and enjoy a well-earned beer and a feast of whale meat. The whale meat is donated by the government of Japan to promote the whaling culture.
クジラネットワーク協会に、なんか鯨類研究所のね、理事長からなんかよこしてくれたらしいですよ。はい。プレゼントがたくさんありますからね。あ、美味しいですね。
お刺身とそれからタッタ揚げとそれからクジラとこんにゃくの炊いたがです。お煮込みね。みんな美味しいです。大変美味しいです。これね、クジラネットワークがね、塩がです。皆さん日本でクジラってめったに食べたことないでしょ。ほんでみんなに試食させてね、やったがです。
Before they return to whaling, Iceland must find a way to make a profit from this industry, because the buying and selling of whale meat between countries is illegal under the Convention of the International Trade in Endangered Species. The function of this body is to determine which species are appropriate for trade.
But the government is hoping they will be able to export the whale meat and the products of the whales they want to take for scientific purposes to the Japanese market. Even though the markets are closed, they still hope that this is possible.
When we did whaling, we sold the products only to Japan, and the market is still there in Japan, and the market wants whale meat, but as you know, international trade in whale products is, well, at least very difficult, and this is something that we would have to solve when or before we start whaling again. We will have to have access to some markets for our whale products.
Why should we take up whaling when we see Norwegians? They have tremendous problems with getting rid of all the whale meat there. Why should we? There isn't a market for it.
Abiy knows the final say on the whaling issue ultimately rests with the Prime Minister.
But whenever I'm asked whether it's feasible to resume whaling, I'll always go to the economic arguments. And the worst thing is that it will damage the image that we want to preserve and build up.
It's much more positive for the economy of Iceland to have whale watching growing, as it has been in the last few years, rather than harming Iceland's interest by going scientific whaling again.
The Parliament of Iceland has decided that we will reassume whaling as soon as practicable. I don't have an exact date on that, when it will be considered practicable, but I imagine that we are talking about 1 or 2 years, something like that.
He's moving. But anyway, no, hopefully, sweet as.
There's a mystique about whales. They inspire awe in a way that is not matched by any other living thing.
Yelling loud.
I was yelling.
Yelling out loud.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was great.
For most people, when they come back from a whale watching tour, they're really on a high, you know, and they're smiling, and it's that brief touch with nature. It's like a brushing with God, really. It touches the spirit, and you take that away. It's magic. It's just magic.
It was just so much better than expectations. Just see not one whale, but 5. I mean, it was like, wow. And the last view, you've got the tail just at the back. To see it for real is just beautiful.
I think we all have to be responsible about their management. And if we cannot manage whaling on any one level, then we should not resume it until we can. And I have yet to be convinced that we can manage whaling.
その国、世界の国々なんかのによっては違うところたくさんあるんですよね。クジラを殺してはかわいそうだとかですけど、私はこれは日本の商業捕鯨はもうやっぱり、持続的な捕鯨っていうのかな。これだけ取っておれば減りもしない増えもしないっていうような取り方であれば。やるべきではないかなと私は思うんですね。というのは私はずっとそれまでこの捕鯨に携わってきた人間ですから、ほんでたくさんクジラも食べてきましたから、だからそういうふうにしていくべきじゃないかなと私は思うんですよね。
Whaling, except on a subsistence basis, only survives in the countries that it does because it's heavily, heavily subsidised by governments. Whale watching isn't subsidised. It's a genuine, viable, standalone industry that works, provides jobs for people and doesn't require taxpayers to subsidise it.
So just think about it, if we lost 400,000 visitors because we didn't have whale watch anymore, how would that affect us? We would lose our shirts.
It's given me more than what I can express in words, the whales have, because it was the whales that created the company, really.
The important thing is to respect each other, to respect each other's culture. I think that is a true globalization.
The New Zealand Government is committed to the protection and conservation of whales. We believe that these unique species of marine mammals that are found in the world's oceans should be preserved.
I can see no conflict between whaling and whale watching. Whaling would, in any case, take place further away from the coast than whale watching. You don't have to go that far from the coast to see whales because they are plentiful in Icelandic waters.
Whale watching is like going to the zoo. You know, I take my kids to the zoo and you are watching the pigs and the cattle and the sheep, and they eat the pig meat and beef and mutton. So to me, there's no difference there.
I'm here with my young 10-year-old boy, and the future for this young chap, I feel, is very bright. It's my feeling that we have a great hope for Iceland if we really leave off the whaling idea forever.
It should be no surprise that they have rich personal lives, just as we do. And it's our arrogance that leads us to think that all the other animals are sort of stupid and cut from a sort of a cookie cutter and they're all the same. But these whales are as different in behavior, I'm sure, even more than we realize. Different in behavior as they are different in their tail patterns.
You can see that flipper. Oh, wow. Oh my God! I am I think that when you go out into an environment and you actually see the whales, you can't help but want to not only protect the whales, but protect their environment.
When you just saw them further out, you didn't get a real sense of how big they were, and then this huge whale came right under the boat, and it was wonderful. You really felt like you knew what they were like.
It's something to see them on TV or in a movie or something, but when you're out here with them and they come so close, and you realize, how big they are, and that that they're real and whatnot. It's just amazing, and that's why I keep coming back.
This is why I like to say to people that I meet that have not actually been on a whale watch, I envy you. I envy you because you still have ahead of you in your life the first time you will see a live whale out on the ocean. And that is one of the great experiences of human life.